I mentioned in a recent episode that people are asking, well, what do I talk about when people are talking about things I'm just like not interested in? And honestly, 15 years ago, we would have whispered that. Now we just say it out loud. Totally normal. In a world tuned to our preferences, algos sent to our specific niche interest, curiosity is weakening and frankly disappearing altogether. So today we're going to talk about how to get the social muscle of curiosity toned tight. Welcome to Creating Opportunities, the podcast for professionals who know that building relationships isn't just a soft skill, it's a career advantage. I'm Cassandra Thompson, and every week we talk about how to better connect in our work lives. Whether you're leading a team, landing a client, or frankly just feel disconnected in your day-to-day, this podcast is here to help. Let's be real. We all look at social media and think, oh, this is bad. This is really distracting me. I'm losing focus. And that's true. But honestly, the only consequence of hyper-personalization isn't just distraction, it's shrinking social range. And I personally think one of the reasons it's harder to make friends, whether outside of work or in the workplace, to build those relationships in general, is because we have grown accustomed to everyone and everything filtering through our interests, being around our interests. You get on your phone, it serves you up content that is specific to you and what you like. And so we're much less used to being around, hearing about things that we just don't care about. And then that gap between ourselves and others is getting bigger. And because we're not having to be interested the way we used to, it's harder to bridge that gap and see that we could still be helpful in each other's lives. Because yes, there should be some sort of commonality in a relationship. You don't just build it with Joe Schmo on the street. You build it with someone you have some commonality with, but we really are niching down our interests to a place that I think it is part of what's making us lonely. Because honestly, relationships aren't just built solely on shared interests. They're also built on shared time and care. And curiosity is how we can offer both. This might sound really silly, but I always think about, it's one of the Jane, I can't remember which movie it is and book, but I picture the movie. It's one of the Jane Austen novels made into a movie. I'm pretty sure it's Sense and Sensibility. And, these people live in a small English country town. The people you have is who you have. And you invite those people over for meals and you go to balls together. And one woman they find kind of annoying and she kind of chatters on a little bit, and yet they deal with her. And they overall are polite to her. There's one moment where somebody makes a dig and embarrasses her, and everyone thinks that's horrible of the person who did it, because we just need to care and be polite to each other and listen to people prattle on about things we don't care about. That's part of kindness. But we're starting to lose our tolerance. We're starting to lose our ability to do that. And curiosity is how we can start getting it back. So I started thinking, well, how does one become curious? How do we work on this skill? What do we say when someone is talking about something that doesn't interest us? The obvious answer is we ask questions. But what questions do we ask? And I'm sure I could go out there and find thought leaders on this topic or some book to read. But these are the things I thought of that I think are real simple. Get ready, it's gonna be elementary school simple to put into practice. So truly, I realized the fundamentals we learned in elementary school need to be brought back to the surface. What do I mean by that? Go back to what you learned in school. The 5 W's and the 1 H. Who, what, when, where, why, how. You can start anything off. You can ask anything around one of those questions to kick off a conversation, even on something you're not interested in. So we're gonna walk through them. Let's get into what this could look like. And as my example for you, I'm going to ask questions about an interest that many people have right now and I don't have at all. And that would be pickleball. So let's pretend I am at an event and I ask someone, you do anything fun this weekend? And they said, oh yeah, I played pickleball. I love it. I'm totally addicted to it. I could care less about pickleball, but I'm about to get interested. So I could ask a who question. Who first got you into pickleball? Oh, who do you normally play with? Very easy, right? Then I could go into a what question. What does a good pickleball player look like? What made this the hobby you chose to go all in on? why was this one? That goes to a why after it, but we can get to that in a second. You know, I've been curious, what is the difference between pickleball and tennis? Let them go off. Or I could ask a when question. When did pickleball first get on your radar? When did you first start playing? Now, you can always pair a statement with a question. So one I would genuinely ask with a statement first is, you know, I know a lot of people playing pickleball and now they're doing competitions. When do you know you're good enough for a competition? When did it go from casual to this is my thing? Easy questions. And then where? Oh, where do you like to play pickleball? Now maybe they'll tell you somewhere they like to play, and that can take us into a conversation about that park or wherever and how you love that park too, because that's where you run. And now you can have a conversation about things other than pickleball. Where's the best place to play in the area? And then you can ask why questions, but we have a caveat on why. I have seen this for myself. I ask a lot of why. I'm very curious about people's motivations, so I ask a lot of why questions. And I've realized even when I ask them, I hear it sound accusatory or judgmental, even though that's not what I mean at all. You know, but there's something about going, why do you do that? That even if I said, why do you do that? They'd still kind of, So while it's technically a why question, you're gonna flip it and say, what led you instead of why? So not, why did you decide to play pickleball? What led you to start playing pickleball? Now, I think you can ask a why question when it's more about the world at large and not personal. So why do you think pickleball has such a chokehold on America right now? What is it about it, right? It's a why and a what together. But that's not personal to them. But if you're nervous about it, just remember why becomes what led you. And then how. How is helpful so that you can start showing interest in a different way that maybe you might take it on too, but it also can still just be a curiosity question. So how would you suggest someone start with pickleball? How does one know if they're a good player? You know, I've thought about playing pickleball, but I don't know anyone who plays. How did you find people to play with? Or how could I find people to play with? Is there a league? Do I go to a rec center? I don't know. I asked the pickleball tennis question before, but how did you choose pickleball over tennis? It still works. Now remember, you are not going to ask all of these, okay? This isn't an interview over whatever thing they're interested in. You're gonna use one or two, maybe three of these questions to get the conversation going. And like we talked about in another episode, you also, hopefully, if it's a conversation, it's a game of toss and they'll bounce the ball back and they'll ask something to you. But even if they don't, you just need to ask one good question to get them going and then listen. Listen to what they say and ask a follow-up question. So if it started with someone saying, oh, I got into pickleball because my wife was really into it and she started playing all the time, and to spend time together, I decided to play too. Well, now I could stay on pickleball and say, oh, you know, where do you guys like to play together? Or have you met what other people have you met from playing pickleball? But I could also take something you said of spend time together and go, oh, what are the other ways you like to spend time together? And now we can go off the topic that I'm not as interested in, but at least I started showing curiosity. Now, in just 1 second, we are going to talk about how you can get started practicing this skill. But first, I do want to talk about one issue. I know one issue people have when it comes to curiosity and asking questions is they're afraid they're going to look uninformed or stupid or like they should have known this information. Now, that might not be the case with pickleball, let's say, but I see this happen a lot, even for myself, when it's something around industry jargon. If I go to an association event or if I'm speaking to a group that does something very different than me, they start sharing terms and saying things and I don't know what they're talking about. And I think a lot of us get intimidated and go, oh, I can't ask questions. They'll think I'm dumb. What I've learned is ask anyways. Unless it's like peer-to-peer where you should know, and in your industry where you should know, most people love being able to share. So if it's people higher up in your industry talking about something and you haven't learned those things yet, this is a great place to start learning. Ask the questions. If you're in a different industry, ask the question. Say, oh, I don't know what that term means. What does that mean? I'll give you an example. Somebody was on a call with me and they said, have you ever done investor relations? work before. And I could just from the way it was said in the context of the conversation, she had a very specific meaning of this. And I didn't want to slip up and say yes, and it turns out no, because we're thinking about it differently. So I said, you say investor relations, I can assume what you mean, but can you define for me what you mean by that? Like, what does investor relations mean to you? Because depending on the industry, depending on where the person's at, it can mean different things. So that's a way you can do it too, is, I have one definition of it, but what do you mean by it? So don't be afraid of asking questions. People love to share what they know, so you're giving them a chance to share their knowledge. So how can you start practicing this skill? How do we become curious people, right? It's important when we're at a networking mixer or a conference, etc. But we need to start practicing it on our day-to-day and just become a curious person, build that social muscle back up. So first thing, practice it with friends and family. Watch how much we don't ask follow-up questions to friends and family or go deeper on something they're interested in. Start asking the questions. Start who, what, where, when, why, and howing them on what they're interested in. See in a conversation if you can ask just one more question. And then if you're a team leader, a manager, head of a company, start off the meeting by asking one question to the group and getting them to respond. This is still starting to get curious about people, even though it's one question to all. And bonus points, if their answer makes you think of other questions, it might not be appropriate and timely in that moment to keep asking more questions there. Go back and Slack them. Go back and ask the follow-up question. Someone says they went stand-up paddleboarding for the weekend. You go, I've wanted to do that. I didn't know there was anywhere around here. You might not ask in that moment, but you can go back on Slack and say, hey, you mentioned stand-up paddleboarding. Where can I go do that around here? Ask a follow-up. And then ask questions to the workers you meet in life, like the barista, the checker at Target. Start simple. Okay, I'm not saying you have to have a full-on conversation with them, but start by saying, hey, how's your day going? Well, has it been busy in here today? And then they say, yeah, it's been really busy. And you ask one more question. What do you like better, when it's really busy or when it's kind of slow? What's your fave? And let them tell you, right? It's just starting to think through getting interested in other people. And I swear it's going to be easier in that mixer conversation where someone goes off about, geology and you don't care. It's going to be a lot easier when you've been practicing and warming up this muscle over time, warming up this muscle in many situations. And remember, at the end of the day, it is better to be interested than interesting. The more you are interested in other people, the more likable you become. So start practicing this skill. It is not a personality trait. It is a social muscle that we can work and grow in. And I need to grow in this myself. I am not pointing fingers here. I need to do this too. So I am going to try today to ask more questions of those around me. In fact, I'm going to lunch after this. I'm going to make sure I ask the girl at the counter, because it's always the same girl. I'm going to ask her a couple of questions. Not interrogate her, but ask her how her day's going and ask a follow-up after that. So let me know in the comments if you try this. I would love to hear about it. And if you need help on how to do this more, let me see. And if you need help on how to network at events in particular, how to feel confident walking in that room and feel yourself at the same time, I have an on-demand workshop. You can watch it at any time. You can get the link to it below. It's called Confidently Connect, and it walks you through everything from before a networking mixer, through it, to when you get home, to make the most of it and yet still be you in this situation. So you can grab more info on that and get it for yourself in the show notes or the description box below. Now, if you need more help on small talk, I'm going to put a link to that other episode I was referring to right here and in the show notes, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you for tuning into the Creating Opportunities podcast. If you found this valuable, please hit subscribe wherever you're listening, and it would really help us out if you leave a quick review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you are watching this on YouTube, hi to my YouTube folks, please like and comment below. I do read every one, and it's small things like that that make a big difference in getting this show out there to more people who want to have better relationships in their work lives. So thank you for that, and I'll see you in the next one.